Okay, buenas noches. This will be our first Zoom session, our first Zoom meeting. Uh, and I'm Professor Miles, and we are going to cover in Spanish 201 5 chapters from our text, 11 through 15. And approximately every 3 weeks, we will cover a chapter. And every 3 weeks, we will have a Zoom meeting, okay? And so I'm going to follow the textbook, okay? And today we're starting with chapter 11. Again, we're going to study 11 through 15 chronologically. And what I want to do here is go to our textbook. We'll go to the beginning of the chapter. We'll start in the comunicación section. We'll look at comunicación, then vocabulario, and then finally we'll look at estructura or grammar. And by looking at these areas, I'm going to show you where to focus. You will be very well prepared to do the homework and also to take the chapter test at the end of the 3-week period. So let's go to page 321 and take a look at comunicación. We're starting there. Also, remember always to look at your course plan. All your work is due on Sundays. It's all listed in your course plan by 11:59 p.m. All your Connect work or Blackboard work and your tests. Please keep up with your deadlines. This is a online course, and keep up with your course plan. And I will also try to post what's due and when. So again, we're back in chapter 11, and chapter 11 deals with the house and the home. So before we get into the actual vocabulary and all, let's look at comunicación. What do they want us to know in this chapter? And first of all, in comunicación, they want us to know how to say welcome, welcome. And there's your word, bienvenido. Okay, welcome. And when you want to welcome somebody, basically they want us to know, in Spanish, you have to be aware of gender and number. Um, uh, Bienvenido is, in a sense, an adjective. You're saying you're welcome. Okay, so bienvenido would be, it ends in an O. That's the masculine welcome, bienvenido. Notice it ends in an O. It's singular. So if you want to welcome someone of the male gender, it would be bienvenido. If it were a female, it would be bienvenida. So be aware of that. That will be on your exam. If they show you a picture and they show you a guy and they say, well, which is the correct greeting? It would be bienvenido, not bienvenida. These are subtle differences. We don't have this in English, and you may not be aware of it. So I'm pointing it out. Now, if you had a group of people there, all men or mixed male and female, then you would say bienvenidos. If it was a group of women, females, it would be bienvenidas. So that's basically how this works. I just wanted to make you aware of this. Please go through these exercises, listen, respond. These are great activities, and this was one of the reasons they chose this book. It's very interactive. So uh, here they have people introduce themselves from different countries, and some countries they may say you're welcome a little differently or emphasize one saying more than another. May I say listen and then respond. Which way or how do they say you're welcome in their particular country? And let's go down to this little box, and again, this will go over a little bit what I already told you. How do you say you're welcome? You can use bienvenido, bienvenida, bienvenidos, or bienvenidas, depending upon whom you're welcoming. Okay. And then they give you some basic little statements with you're welcome. You are welcome. You use the verb ser, not estar. So you could say, if you want to use the formal you, usted es bienvenido if it's a man, or usted es bienvenida if it's a woman. Or you could just say bienvenido, bienvenida. Just they're giving you different ways to speak. Uh, so how do you say we welcome you? You know, using it more like a verb. It's to use the verb dar to give the welcome. Okay. So if you want to say we welcome you, and you want to use the informal you, we would say, or I welcome you. Yo te doy la bienvenida. Okay. And the word la bienvenida, the noun is feminine. Yo te doy la bienvenida. We welcome them would be les, okay, damos la bienvenida, or nosotros les damos la bienvenida. As you know, in Spanish, you don't have to use the subject pronoun. So in Spanish, I don't have to say nosotros les damos la bienvenida. I can just say les damos la bienvenida. Damos tells me that it's the nosotros form of the verb I'm using. This is just a little review, but just to get you used to this. Okay, so you will have some exercises even in your homework or on your exam, and then they might say, how would you welcome this person? Notice in the first one, there's a señora, a woman. So you're going to say bienvenida with an A, not with an O. Okay. Here you have a man, so it would be bienvenido. Here you have a group of people, mixed sex, so bienvenidos. And a group of women would be bienvenidas, and a single woman, bienvenida. So make sure you're aware of this when you're doing your homework as well as on your exam. Okay. And then they just tell you you can use sir, señor, or señores when you're using men for gentlemen, for older women, señoras, for young people, joven, jóvenes. Okay, señorita for an unmarried, younger unmarried woman. Aside from saying, learning how to say you're welcome, they want you to be able to make polite invitations again. Uh, so, um, and they give you some examples. So you might want to invite somebody or some people to do something, and these are the scenarios they give you. Just get familiar with them. So you might want to tell, and when you give somebody a polite invitation, and in this case, what they really mean is a command. Um, Remember that in Spanish, uh, we have many command forms. In English, we only have one, because in English, when you give a command, it's the you form. There's only one form of you. But in Spanish, we have an informal you, tú, when you're familiar with the person, a formal you, usted, then a plural you, ustedes. And even in Spain, they have a further one, vosotros. We don't use that. And I will not be working with vosotros. So we have three yous, the informal, tú, usted, and ustedes. And you can go check chapter 10, okay, in this book, where they teach the commands, the mandatos, and they start on page 305. You might want to review this section, just look it over, but it's not fully necessary. So when you give somebody an invitation, you might want to say, eat, eat some more, or have a good time, or come on in, or sit down. Someone comes into your comes to visit you, you might say, come on in, and then have a seat. And or you might have food set up at a table at your home, and you might go, um, help yourself. Help yourself to the food. These are all commands. So just be aware of that, and be aware on your exam, if they or in your homework, whether you're going to be using tú, which you use with a friend or family member, usted, which you would use with somebody you don't know, or ustedes when you're addressing a group of people. So let's look quickly at some of these commands. So come más, have some more, that you would use with friend or family. Coma más, notice the spelling now changes. It's the usted command form. Again, look at these commands in chapter 10 on page 305 if you need to refresh your memory on any of this. Then there's the plural command, coman más. Here's the verb divertir, have a good time. Diviértete, have a good time. That's the to form. Diviértese, have a good time. That's your usted form. And diviértense if it's a group of people. Likewise, if you want to tell somebody, come on in, and it's friend or family, you would say pasa if it's just one person. If it's somebody you don't know well, you want to be a little more formal with, it would be pase. And if it was a group of people, you want to tell them to come on in, it would be passing. Look at this. Same with to sit down. Siéntense, siéntense, and siéntense. Okay, so we've got siéntate, siéntese, and siéntense. Look at these and make sure you know which one you would use. And finally, serve yourself or help yourself to some food. There's your 3 ways you should say it. I'm spending a little time on this again because in English we only have one U form, and you've got to look at how many people are in the scenario, whether they would be familiar to you or they would be someone you would use usted with, whether it's a singular or plural situation. Okay, so again, here is a situation where you have a gentleman coming into an office. This is a more formal work situation, so you would use pase, the usted form. Here you would, again, you're in an office situation, you're going to use the more formal term, and you're going to tell someone to have a seat. So you're going to use the usted form, okay? Siéntense, okay? And so make sure you look at this. Here you're going to, the waiter is telling more than one person to serve themselves. So you're going to use the ustedes form, okay? Sírvanse. Okay, so you should feel comfortable. Here they're going to tell a group of people what? Have a good time. Diviértense. So make sure you feel comfortable with this. Okay. And we have this same situation crop up again. Here, obviously, these are 2 young people. They're going to use to with each other. It's very informal. So it'd be siéntate, sit down. Here you have someone welcoming in more than one person, so you have to use the plural passing. Okay, here again, we have what? Informal friends, so you're going to use pasa. So look through these and make sure that you know which command form to use. Do I use tu, usted, or ustedes? Spend a little time with these. It's really very simple. If you need to go back and review your mandatos or your commands, they are outlined on page 305 in your textbook from chapter 10. Okay, let's move on. Vocabulario. Chapter 11 deals with la casa, the home, the house, the home. So again, you should know a lot of this. At this level of Spanish, you should have seen a lot of these words. Review it. It's vocabulary surrounding the house, the home, an apartment. What are the cuartos, the rooms that you would have in the home? How do you say living room? Okay, salon. How do you say kitchen? Cocina. How do you say bathroom? El baño. Look at these parts of a home or building. How do you say basement? Sótano. How do you say hallway? Pasillo. Look through this, I'm sorry, look through this section of vocabulario, okay? And let me just check here. So vocabulario is on page 328. And so make sure you go through this. You can click on the icons there and practice your pronunciation if you wish. Okay. And again, you can look at the different parts of a building or a home. El techo would be the roof. La planta baja, would be your ground floor. El jardín, the garden. Sótano, basement. Here we're inside of an apartment or home. Dormitorio or habitación is the bedroom. Okay. There's your baño, bathroom. There's a lot of extraneous terms here. I mean, your clothesline, el tendero, where you tendera clothing. There's a lot of vocabulary here, but certainly know your rooms and parts of a home. El garaje, right? The garage. Moving on. What else do you need to know about the house and home? You need to know los muebles. Be able to describe or know certain pieces of furniture, and also know los electrodomésticos, appliances, electrical appliances that you're going to use around the house. Again, you've all should have had much of this, so it should be review. Here's a full list. Go through and look. Un sofá, that's a mueble. The fregadero is the kitchen sink where you fregar is a verb to scrub. Estufa, stove. Refrigerador is refrigerator. Look through this vocabulary, refamiliarize yourself. La bañera, bathtub. Lavabo is a bathroom sink. Cama, of course, is bed. Look through this vocabulary. Lavaplatos, dishwasher. Lámpara, right, is a lamp. All right, sillón, armchair. Ducha, shower. Televisor is your television. El microondas. Ondas are waves. The microwave oven is el microondas. Toilet, inodoro. La aspiradora, vacuum cleaner. Know some of these electrodomésticos. You will be asked about them. Okay. Finally, in our home, not only do we have the parts of the house, uh, um, different features, la escalera, the stairway, el balcón, pasillo, hallway, balcón is balcony, and then your bedroom, dormitorio, la cocina. But we have the muebles, we just looked at those, los electrodomésticos. And then finally, we have our quehaceres. Those are the chores, los quehaceres domésticos, the chores that you do around the home, okay? And make sure you look at these. What are some of the things you might do at a home? You might sweep the floor, barrer el piso. You might make the bed, hacer la cama. You might lavar, to wash los platos, okay? And la lavaplatos in the dishwasher. Limpiar is to clean. So to vacuum is pasar la aspiradora. We learned aspiradora is vacuum cleaner. So take a look at those quehaceres and go through some of these exercises. Make sure you look at these little reading sections. There will be reading on your exams. You'll read little, and sometimes it'll be readings right from your textbook. Here's one on Antoni Gaudí, okay, y Cornet, known more popularly as Gaudí. And Gaudí is from Barcelona, and he was a famous architect, one of Spain's most famous architects. So read about him. They're talking about architecture because we're dealing with the house, home, apartments, and Gaudí did construct many lavish homes and apartments in Barcelona. And take a look at this because you will have some readings to do and you'll need to answer some questions. And this is a great time to look at that. Okay. So here's some more exercises concerning vocabulary and the house and home. Again, make sure you familiarize yourself with this vocabulary. You might read or have to listen to something about a home, a description of a home, and they might ask you, does the home have a garaje? Does it have a sótano? So make sure that you can, you know what they're talking about. There are different, there are, for example, different ways of saying the same thing. Refrigerador is a refrigerator. Here's another term though, la nevera. Both mean the same thing. The lavaplatos is the dishwasher, but you can also call it a lavavajillas. So take a look at these exercises and go through them. And let me see if there's anything else here. Here they're describing the ubicación or the location of different rooms in a house. Is it to the left of, to the right of? That's not so important, but you could just take a quick look at it. And I think that about does it with our vocabulary. So now let's get into the estructura, okay? So now we're moving right along and we're going to look at the estructura, and this page starts on page 320. Again, spend some time and look through these exercises. And now this says reciclaje, recycling, or review. They just ask you to take a look at what? The present tense, the preterite tense, and the imperfect tense, which we had last semester. You should all know these tenses. You might want to just review them. Remember when we whenever we want to conjugate a verb, we get the stem of the verb, right? All verbs in Spanish end in AR, ER, IR. We drop the AR, ER, IR. We get the stem. And then depending upon our subject pronoun, whether it's yo, tú, nosotros, we put on the ending. And make sure you remember your present endings. Make sure you remember your preterite endings. The preterite is a simple past tense. So you should be able to say, I eat, yo como, I ate, yo comí, and I used to eat, or I was eating, stem and ending, yo comía. So look at your, just review your imperfect, your preterite, and your present tense. This is basic Spanish. You should all be able to do this. Here's preparar el desayuno. So present tense, I get the stem, I put on my ending. Okay, for yo preparo el desayuno. If I want to put it in the preterite, yesterday I prepared, it would be ayer yo preparé el desayuno. My ending is an E there, right? And then if I want to say I used to or I was preparing, cuando yo era niño, yo preparaba, right? So your aba endings are in the imperfect tense for AR verbs, and your ia endings are for ER and IR verbs. Make sure you look at that. And because we've learned this, you're in a pretty advanced state of Spanish, but it doesn't hurt to look at that. Not that you're going to be specifically tested on it, but you should remember it. Okay, now what is a new area of grammar? A new verb tense that we haven't had so far, and it's called the present perfect tense. We have it in English, we use it all the time, and it's also used in Spanish. So you can look through some of these descriptions and exercises, and I like to move on real quickly to the part called actividades analíticas. Here they're going to explain exactly what the present the present perfect tense is. Okay, so what is the present perfect tense? In English, it would be the verb to have, it's your helping or auxiliary verb, and then a past participle. So if I have the verb eat, to eat, and I want to give you the present perfect tense with I, in English, I would say, I have, I use the verb have, that's my helping verb, and then I use my past participle of the verb to eat, eaten. So today I have eaten many things, okay? If I want to use the we form, I would say we have eaten, okay? I can do this, of course, with any verb. I have seen, they have seen, he has seen. So that is the present perfect tense, and it exists in Spanish, and it's formed exactly the same way with the verb, an auxiliary verb or helping verb, the verb to have, and the present participle. So what do we need to do? We need to learn is we need to learn how to conjugate the verb to have. We do not use tener, that's to possess. We use the helping verb to have, okay? And that's haber. And we've already seen haber a little bit because we learned the concept of I, H-A-Y. There is, there are. Hubo, there was, there were. Había, there used to be. Now, let's go back and look at the verb haber. You need to be able to conjugate the verb haber in the present tense because the present progressive tense has two parts, two verbs, haber and then the present participle. So let me see here, because your book does things a little differently than I would. Let me see if they conjugate the verb haber for us. I sometimes don't like the way they present things. Give me 1 second here. Well, let's go to the first part here. And so let's learn how to conjugate the verb haber. They don't actually give us a chart right here, but let's go and do it. So how do we conjugate the verb haber? First of all, it's an ER verb, haber. And let's conjugate it for yo, and we're doing it in the present tense. So it would be yo e, and it's an H-E. Tú has, H-A-S. Él ha, H-A. Ella ha, usted ha. Okay. Nosotros would be hemos, H-E-M-O-S. We don't use vosotros. And ellos would be han, H-A-N. So it will be e, has, ha, hemos, and han. Please learn how to conjugate the verb haber in the present tense and commit it to memory. You're in advanced Spanish. You should be able to do that. Once you've done that, you're halfway through the present perfect tense. Now we've got to get our verb, and how do we form the present participle? How do we form the present participle? Okay. I'm sorry, excuse me. How do we form the past participle? We want to form the past participle. How do we form it? So I have seen. He has eaten. How do I form that word seen or that word eaten? Okay. And let's take a look. Okay. And let me see if they bother to explain this to us here. And it doesn't look like they're going to do it. So remember, verbs in Spanish either end in AR, ER, or IR. So if I have an AR verb and I want to form the past participle, okay, all right, I want to get the stem of the verb, and I'll show you how. So for AR verbs, you get the stem of the verb and you add on ado, okay? So if I want to say I have taken, I would say yo he tomado. I got the stem, tom, I dropped the air, and I added on ado, the suffix ado. That's all you do. That works for all AR verbs. So now you should be able to form the past participle of any AR verb that's regular. Any AR verb, okay? Okay, then let's take a look now at ER and IR verbs, the other two categories of verbs. In order to form the past participle of an ER or IR verb, get the stem and just add on ido, IDO. That's it. That's how simple it is. So I have eaten would be yo he comido. They have eaten, ellos han comido. We have eaten, nosotros hemos comido. That's how simple this is, okay? So I did an ER verb and then an IR verb, lived. I have lived, yo he ido. Okay, so for AR verbs, I take the stem and add on ado. That gives me the past participle. For ER and IR verbs, I get the stem and I add on ido. And that is it. So let's move on. And let me see. And we could just do some here real quickly. Here's an AR verb, lavar, since we're doing with the quehaceres domésticos. We might want to wash something. Lavar is the verb to wash, lavar los platos. So if I want to say I have washed the dishes, I would say yo he. Now the verb is lavar. I get the stem. I drop the R and I get the stem. Lav. And the ending will be ado. To get that past participle, I add an ado. Yo he lavado. Now here's an IR verb, salir, to leave. Okay, he has left would be él ha. Now for an IR verb, I get the stem, so I drop the IR and I get sal, and I add on the suffix ido, the ending ido. Él ha salido. He has left. This is an easy tense. Just remember there's two parts. There's the verb haber. You need to be able to conjugate the verb haber, and then you need to be able to form the past participle. Okay. And again, you can read through this, look at it. Now, unfortunately, there are some irregular past participles. So if it's an AR verb, you don't take the stem and add on ado. If it's an ER-IR verb, you don't take the stem and add on ido. There are a few exceptions. Learn them. They're really common. You hear them all the time in Spanish. And here they are. Decir. So if you wanted to get the past participle, you don't take the stem des and add on ido. Decido does not exist. It's dicho. So he has said would be él ha dicho. Okay. Mary has said would be Mary ha dicho. Simple as that. I have said, yo he dicho. Okay. Escribir is irregular as well. It's not escribido, it's escrito. They have written, ellos han escrito. You just have to memorize them. Hacer is very important. We saw it earlier above, but I kind of skipped through it. It's hecho. Okay. I have done my homework. Yo he hecho la tarea. He hecho. Or I've made my bed. Yo he hecho la cama. It is not ha sido. It doesn't exist, the word ha sido. Died, ella ha muerto. She has died. Just learn it. And to put her place, él ha puesto. Not ponido. Ponido don't exist. It's puesto. Please learn it. And finally, seen. I have seen. Yo he visto. So please learn these. Decir is dicho. Escribir is escrito. Hacer is hecho. Very important word used all the time in Spanish. Morir is muerto, died. And put or placed is puesto. And finally, seen, the past participle seen is visto. Visto. Okay. ¿Has visto la película? Have you seen the movie? ¿Has visto? Notice I said, ¿has visto? I'm asking you in the to form. Have you seen? ¿Has visto? ¿Has visto la película? Okay. Let's see. Remember I told you I means there is, there are. Hubo, there was, there word. There has been would be ha habido. Not so important, but it's good to be aware of that. There's a present perfect form. Here is your auxiliary verb. You use the third person singular form of haber, ha, and then the past participle of haber is habido. There has been. Okay. All right, you can look through some of these exercises. There's a present perfect exercise. Listen to it, develop your ear, and be able to understand questions like this and be able to answer them. And let's take a look at this. What is this question asking here? You're going to have stuff like this in chapter 11. ¿Qué han dicho los médicos? Let's take a look. What have the doctors said? ¿Qué han dicho los médicos? Often in Spanish, you put the subject well at the end of the question when you ask it. Han dicho, have said, they have said, han dicho. ¿Dónde has puesto? What do you think that means? Where have you, tú, where have you put the what? Aspiradora, the vacuum cleaner. Look at this one. ¿Qué has hecho? What have you done lately? Okay. Here's one. No me acuerdo. I don't remember. Acordarme is a reflexive verb. Acordarse. I don't remember. Yo no me acuerdo. And then it says, hemos visto esa película. Hemos, have. Who is the have? It's the nosotros form. So have we seen the movie? Notice in Spanish, I don't have to say hemos visto nosotros. I don't have to use the subject pronoun every time I ask a question or I state something. This throws people off. That's why it's important to understand your verbs. This is the we form. ¿Qué has hecho? I don't say ¿qué has hecho tú? I just say ¿qué has hecho? I know it's you from the has. ¿Qué has puesto? I know it's tú. I don't need to put tú in there. In English, I have to include the subject pronouns always. Okay, here's one. Han ido. Ido is the past participle of ir, to go. Have you gone to Ecuador? And let me just go back here quickly. They did give us the irregular, the verbs that have irregular past participles. I don't know why they didn't put ir here, but ir is ido. Yo he ido, I have gone. And but go through this and get yourself familiar with this tense. And we looked at some questions. And so listen to the narrations and see if you can answer these. Okay. Here's a quick reading on Santeria, a folk religion practiced in the Caribbean, particularly in Cuba. Okay, let me see. So, again, here's some uses of the present perfect tense. Has bailado tango? Have you danced the tango? And the person answers, no, nunca he bailado. Yeah, I don't need the yo there. I know it's I. No, I have never, nunca he, yo nunca he bailado tango. Okay. All right, let's move on here. I think that pretty much does it with the present perfect tense. So you use the verb haber. Make sure you conjugate it properly. Okay, yo, he, tú, has, él, ha, ella, ha, usted, ha, plural. Nosotros hemos and ellos han. Please know that. And then be able to form the past participle. Take the stem of the verb. If it's an adverb, it's stemen ado, tomado. And if it's an IR verb, it's stemen ido. Okay, vivido, ER verb, same thing. Stemen ido, yo he comido. And then please look over those irregular past participles. Yo he hecho, yo he visto, yo he ido. Okay. All right. Finally, they ask you here to look at direct objects and direct object pronouns, which we had in chapter 6, and we've had them in the past. Why? Because they want you to be able to give commands using direct object pronouns, like do it, okay? Eat them, okay? For example, the fruits are on the table, eat them, okay? Um, uh, there's some juice on the table, drink it. So they want us to be able to identify the direct object, and particularly the direct object pronouns. Okay, so you might want to go through and look at that, but let's move on and see exactly what they want us to do. Okay, so they want us to give commands, and I told you this is very critical. You might want to review it in chapter 10, starting on page 305. They want us just to get familiar with command language. Your questions on your homework and your test won't be that difficult, but when you're looking at a command, you need to know, is it a to command? Is it an usted command, a more formal command, or is it a plural command, ustedes? Please be able to differentiate and know when to use which, okay? There's a bunch of people, ustedes. If it's a formal setting, like professional, usted. An older person, usted. Young people or family members talking to one another, it'll be a to command. So let's take a look. And then you should know how to give a negative command. Don't do it. Don't sit there. Don't eat it. So there's affirmative commands: eat it, take them, see her. And then it's don't do it. Don't eat them. Okay? That's really what this lesson's about. There's not a whole lot here, but please just take a look at it and get yourself familiar with it. Okay, so what did I want to do here? And they refer you back to chapter 10, and they ask you to look through the commands, how they're formed. So let's take a look on how you use a command with an object pronoun, okay? When you're giving an affirmative command, you attach the object pronoun to the end of the command. That's all. So if you want to tell somebody to, I don't know, put it on the table, put it, and you want to give a to command, the to command is pon. Let's say the thing that you want them to put on the table is a fork. It's masculine. So you would say, put it on the table. So the it now becomes lo. Remember your object pronoun. So you would say, pon lo, all one word. You attach the pronoun to the end of the command, and la mesa. So put the fork on the table, and then if you want to just say, put it on the table, ponlo en la mesa, when you're giving an affirmative command. Here we want to say, we want to give a to command again, and we want to tell somebody to put sugar into the cafe. So now you're going to use the indirect object pronoun, le, put it into it, ponle. You attach the object pronoun to the end of the command. And likewise, if you use reflexive verbs like ponerse, to put on clothing. So you tell somebody, put on your hat, el sombrero, it's masculine. So you tell them, put it on. You want to use the to form. You would affirmatively, you say, the word for it now is lo. Pon lo. Pon, I'm sorry, my mistake. You would say, put it on, or just let's step back. You want to tell somebody, put on the hat, el sombrero. So to put something on is ponerse. It's a reflexive verb. So for reflexive verbs, we attach the reflexive pronoun to the end of the command. So it would, if you want to tell somebody to put on the hat, you're going to use the to form, it would be ponte el sombrero. So we just attach our pronouns onto the end of the commands. That's all. As simple as that. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Now, when you give somebody a negative command, you put the pronoun placement changes. First of all, a negative command starts with the word no. Okay. Then after the no, you follow it with the pronoun, whether it's an object pronoun, indirect object pronoun, or a reflexive pronoun. So let's take a look. Say you're using the to form, you're giving a to command, and you're saying, don't put them in your bedroom. Don't put them in your dorm room. I don't know what the them might be, but it's a masculine plural thing. So you would say, no los pongas en tu dormitorio. Notice a negative command starts with the word no. You then insert the pronoun, whether it's an object pronoun, indirect object pronoun, or a reflexive pronoun, and then you put in the verb. Okay? Just the opposite of an affirmative command. If you were telling them, put them in the bedroom, it would be tu ponlos, and you attach the object to the end of the verb when it's an affirmative command. That's all. Okay, let me see. So again, they give you some examples here. They take the verb limpiar, to clean. So say you want to say clean it, the room, el cuarto. El cuarto is masculine. So you want to tell somebody, you're giving a positive or an affirmative command, you would say what? Limpialo, tu limpialo. And you would attach the pronoun it to the end of the command, limpialo. And what about a negative command? You put no, lo, limpias. You put the pronoun directly before the command. It's as simple as that. You should be able to identify these situations and work with them. Okay. Again, informal commands are with tu. Okay. Formal commands are with usted, and plural formal commands are with ustedes. Okay. And they want you to create negative and positive commands, which you can do. And they want you to get rid of the direct object and substitute the, what do you call it? The direct object pronoun. Okay. All right. So you might want to dust off or vacuum the furniture. So again, you would just, for sacudir, you would say sacude los muebles. I'm sorry, sacude los muebles. Dust the furniture, or just simply dust them. So we now want to get rid of furniture. So how do I say them? It's masculine plural, it's los. So it would be sacúdelos. That's the affirmative or positive command. The negative one would be don't dust them. So it would be no, okay. No, now you put the pronoun before the command, before the verb, no los sacudas. Simple as that, okay? All right, let me see. Okay, so let's move on. Now, they're introducing a new verb tense. We just learned one today. We learned the present perfect. The verb to have plus the past participle. We know how to conjugate the verb to have with the subject pronouns. We know how to form the past participles, and we know the irregular ones. Now let's learn this new verb form. It's called the present progressive tense. And the present progressive tense is in English. We use it all the time. We use it more in English actually than in Spanish. They use the present tense more, like yo como. In English, we would tend to use the present progressive more. But what is the present progressive? Again, it's a double tense. It has two parts. Please be aware of this. Again, students mess this up. It's the present progressive tense in English. It forms the exact same way with the verb to be. You conjugate the verb to be with your subject, and then you form the present participle of the verb. The present participle of a verb is the ing form of the verb. So right now I could say, I speak is just a simple present tense. But the present progressive tense has two parts, the verb to be and the present participle. So I would say, I am speaking. I had to conjugate the verb to be. And then I had to add on what? The present participle. So now, to form this tense, we have to know how to conjugate the verb to be. First, we have to know which verb to be do we use. We could use ser or estar. Use estar for the present progressive tense. Never, ever use ser, okay? We all should know how to conjugate the verb estar in the present tense, which is advanced Spanish now. Yo estoy, tú estás, él está, usted está. Plural, nosotros estamos, ellos están, ustedes están. So we've got half the battle already won. Now we have to form the present participle of the verb, okay? And how do we form the present participle of a verb? Well, we have AR, ER, and IR verbs. If it's an AR verb, we get the stem. And we add on the suffix or the ending ando. Ando. So I am taking is yo estoy tomando. Okay. All right. I am looking for buscar. Yo estoy buscando. Stem and ando ending. What about an ER or an IR verb? We take this, so if we want to get the present participle, the ing form of that verb for an ER or IR verb, we get the stem and we add on iendo, I-E-N-D-O, iendo. Real simple. So I am eating is yo estoy comiendo. Yo estoy comiendo. We are eating is nosotros estamos comiendo, or simply estamos comiendo. I don't need the subject pronouns for most of these. Estás comiendo. You should know right away that it means you are eating, the to form. Okay? All right. And what about an IR verb? The same thing. We get the stem of the verb, like let's take vivir. I am living would be yo estoy, and you add on yendo. Yo estoy viviendo. So for ER and IR verbs, stem and yendo gives you the present participle. For AR verbs, stem and ando gives you the present participle for AR verbs. That's it. Okay. So the rest of this you should be able to form. Let's take a quick look. Estoy haciendo. We are doing our homework. I'm sorry, I am doing, sorry. Yo estoy, I am doing my homework. Estoy haciendo la tarea. Estoy desayunando. Desayunar, to have breakfast. I am having breakfast. Or literally, I am breakfasting, which you could say. Okay, estoy ayudando. Ayudando. I am helping. Estoy llegando. I am arriving. All right. Here's some more. Mi mamá y yo, my mother and I, estamos viendo. We are ver, watching, or we could say mirando or viendo la televisión. All right. So make sure that you know how to form the present progressive. It's very easy. We use it all the time in Spanish. Uh, Again, here's some more examples. Estoy cenando, from cenar. I'm having dinner. Están estudiando. Ellos están estudiando. They are what? Studying. And Mari está escribiendo. Mary is writing. Very easy to form these. Now, as always, there are some irregular present participles. You've got to learn these. Just learn them. They're real common. And there's a spelling change, and it happens with only IR verbs. So first of all, it's got to be an IR verb, okay? All right. And these are IR stem changers, okay? These are IR stem changing verbs, okay? And we had these last year, like decir, to say or do, tell, pedir, to request or ask for, seguir, to follow, servir. These are all stem changers, IR stem changers, and where the E went to I in the present tense. Well, they have a little stem change when you form the present participle. Here it is. The E goes to I when you form the present participle. So for saying, it's not stem and iendo. It's, you have to change the stem, you change the E to I. So it's not diciendo, it's diciendo. The E goes to I. For pedir, it's pidiendo, not pediendo. The E goes to I. For seguir, to follow, it's siguiendo, not seguiendo. The E goes to I. And for servir, to serve, it's sirviendo, S-I-R-V, not serviendo. The E goes to I. That's it. So just look at these, get used to them. And then for IR verbs with an O in them that are stem changers, we had dormir and morir. The O goes to you. So I am sleeping is yo estoy, not more. I wouldn't say yo estoy dormiendo. I would say yo estoy durmiendo. Again, this only happens to IR stem changers. With an O in them, the O goes to you. Durmiendo is sleeping. Muriendo. Estoy muriendo de la risa. I'm dying of laughter. Not muriendo, but muriendo. Please take a look at these. Here's a spelling change. I'm not going to worry about it too much. But for verbs like leer, oír, and traer, where the stem has a vowel in it, so le, oí, tra, the stem has a vowel in it. These are all verbs that you would add iendo, I-E-N-D-O, because it already has a vowel in it. We don't want to have 4 vowels in a row, so we change the I of iendo to a Y. That's the best I can come up for the explanation, but just take a look at it. Okay. And then this note here on the present progressive, it's used much more in English than in Spanish. In Spanish, we tend to just use the present tense a lot. And we actually have to be engaged in the activity when we're doing it. Whereas in English, we can be a little more loose when we use the present progressive tense. I am eating, I am reading, I'm studying. We don't actually have to be engaged in it. We can use it for the future. I'm studying French tomorrow. In Spanish, you've got to actually be more engaged in it. But look at this little note, and it'll give you an idea on the differences on how the present progressive tends to be used a little bit more in English than in Spanish. I like this note 3. Okay. And let me see. Take a look at note 4. Okay. You can use these present participles with the verb to go, andar, to go about, seguir is to continue. Okay, so normally we use these with estar to get the present progressive tense, but you can use them with the verb ir and andar or seguir. Okay, and you will hear this a lot in Spanish. I could say Manuel is looking for a house. Manuel está buscando una casa. I could also say Manuel anda, he's going around looking for a house, anda buscando una casa, or va buscando una casa. You'll hear this. You could ask somebody, what are you doing here? ¿Qué estás haciendo aquí? But you could say, ¿qué andas haciendo aquí? Andar is to go about. What you're going about doing here? And seguir means to follow or continue. So are you still sigues pariendo el pasillo? This is an interesting note. You won't really be tested on it, but it's interesting to see that. Okay. Now, so go through these exercises using the present progressive with the verb estar. Okay. All right. Look at some of these. ¿Qué están haciendo? That means what are they doing? I don't have to say ¿qué están haciendo ellos? I could tell from están. That's what it means. Okay. All right. Mi perro probablemente está durmiendo. Notice it's not durmiendo. IR verbs with an with an O in them that are stem changers. The O changes to a U when you go to form the present participle. Okay. Okay, let me see if there's anything else here. Okay. And the rest of this chapter, if you can, if you have time, you can read through some of this stuff just to develop your vocabulary a little bit. But I went through the main elements of comunicación, vocabulario, and the estructura sections you need to know. Again, when if I just jump back to estructura, the one area again was using affirmative or positive commands and negative commands with object pronouns and reflexive pronouns. And you should be able to do that. Again, if you're going to give an affirmative command, like you might want to tell somebody, help me, like a friend or family. So you say you're going to use a to form with a friend or family member. You would say, help me, ayúdame. It's a positive command. You attach the pronoun to the end of the command, to the verb, ayúdame. Okay, all one word. Now tell someone, don't help me. It would be no, and then you put your object pronoun before the verb. No me ayudes. Now you're using the negative to command form. And remember, you can do the same for usted and ustedes. So when you're doing these, make sure you know if you're using the formal you, the plural formal you, or the to informal you. So for example, if you want to tell somebody you don't know well that you're going to be a señor or a señora, you might want to use the usted form. So you would tell them, help me would be ayúdeme. And then don't help me, no me ayude. If it's plural, okay, there's a bunch of people and you were saying, help me, you would say, ayúdenme, ayuden with me, and don't help me, you all, no me ayuden. So just make sure you can make these distinctions, and you'll see this on your homework problems. And I think that will do it for chapter 11. Have a good evening. Thank you.